Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, this budget is a triple deficit budget. It runs a fiscal deficit, it runs an environmental deficit, it runs a social deficit, and perhaps most sadly, it betrays a deficit of vision for New Zealand. This budget takes money from overseas creditors to fund its fiscal deficit.
Order. I apologise to Dr Russell Norman. Could I just ask members leaving the House to please do so quietly, and also people in the galleries, please no talk, because the noise volume just escalates here in the House and it's so hard to hear, and it's unfair, totally unfair to you, to the member, to Dr Russell Norman. I apologise for that. Dr Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Shall I start again?
I think just carry on.
This budget takes money from overseas creditors for its fiscal deficit. This budget takes away the dreams of our young people with its social deficit. This budget takes away the chance for our kids to love New Zealand as we do with its environmental deficit. And it adds to the deficit of vision that has so far marked this photo opportunity government. New Zealanders believe in more than just money. New Zealanders want prosperity, which is enough money to live comfortably, but is also warm homes, safe, healthy food for their kids, a transport system that works, and Aotearoa that they can love forever, not mine for a quick buck. The Green Party supports this vision and therefore cannot vote for this budget.
Order. I apologise to the honourable member speaking. No member in the gallery may take part in the debate in any shape or form. I make that very clear to members in the gallery. They will not interfere in the debate or they'll be removed from the gallery. I apologise to the member, Dr Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This budget was an opportunity to take Aotearoa down a new, smarter economic path. This budget could have provided the map and the funding to transform the New Zealand economy from one based on commodities and extractive industries towards one that rides the clean technology wave, an economy that has a reputation for high-quality, sustainable commodities and for knowledge-intensive, high-tech, clean-tech industries. New Zealand could be a brand of integrity. Our country can be more than just extractive industries. Cow faeces in our water and national parks desecrated by mining. We can be more than a quick buck, more than what we can dig up, suck up and sell off. Indeed, this budget from National Act and the Maori Party proposes to consume our capital, our financial, natural and social capital. We should pass on wisdom to the next generation, but we are passing on financial, environmental and social debt. Most of all, this budget makes manifest the contradiction at the heart of our age. We live in a society whose central rationale is maximum economic growth at any cost, and yet we know that this growth threatens our well-being and even our long-term survival. Mr Speaker, I would like to start by addressing the fiscal deficit. This budget borrows to fund tax cuts, more motorways and climate pollution subsidies. We are already borrowing $240 million every week for new and rollover loans, and yet this government has introduced huge tax cuts that will cost $4.6 billion in 2011-12 financial year. We are already borrowing, and yet this government is spending $9.5 billion on holiday highways and other pet motorway projects that even the government's figures show cost us more than they will deliver in benefits. We are already borrowing, and yet this government will spend $630 million in 2011 on subsidies to climate polluters. This is fiscally irresponsible. The impact of these measures will mean that government debt balloons out to 26.5% of gross domestic product, that annual finance costs will go up to nearly $6 billion in 7 years' time, and that we won't return to pre-crisis debt levels until 2024. This unnecessary public debt, when piled on top of the mass of private debt in our country, reduces our economic sovereignty. Future generations will bear the burden of this debt and will be beholden to the international lenders who own so much of our economy. This is not freedom, and this is not the sovereignty New Zealanders seek. The build-up of national debt will also provide an excuse to privatise public assets after the next election. In 2012, John, Bill and Jerry plan to sell off what's left of New Zealand's public assets. The so-called mineral stocktake, which prepares the very best of our conservation estate for mining, is not the only stocktake in town. Mark my words, John Key will use government debt to justify a for sale sign over our state-owned assets such as Air New Zealand, Television New Zealand, Solid Energy, Meridian, Genesis, New Zealand Post and the Accident Compensation Corporation. Mr Speaker, John Key blames tax loopholes for his decision to increase GST and cut tax rates. Mr Speaker, he could have closed the tax loopholes, but he has legalised them instead. He has rewarded tax avoidance with a tax cut. This is not smart and it's not fair. A capital gains tax is smart, and you can make it fair by excluding the family home. Sam Morgan doesn't think it's fair that he pays less tax than his secretary, and nor do I. Capital gains tax is part of the solution to our property crisis. It can broaden our tax base and strengthen our economy. A capital gains tax is sharply progressive because income derived from capital gains is concentrated amongst the most wealthy. The United States uses the capital gains tax and shows us that those earning more than $1 million a year get around 40% of their income from capital gains. Meanwhile, those earning less than $75,000 per year get less than 2% of their incomes from capital gains. So capital gains taxes are sharply progressive because the tax falls on those who can afford it most, whereas GST is regressive because the tax falls on those who can afford it the least. The Green Party stands for smart, fair taxes and has the courage to say what National and Labor both know, that a comprehensive capital gains tax, excluding the family home, will help protect New Zealanders from property speculation. It will help make the dream of home ownership a reality for more Kiwis, and it will feed much-needed capital to the starved productive sector. We also know that there is a need to increase housing supply at the same time. Building more state housing can counter upward pressure on rents and boost the building sector of our economy while helping our most needy families. John Key may talk about taking a balanced approach, but when it comes to rebalancing our economy, there is little action. Our tax system remains skewed. The tax treatment of property, changes to LAQCs and depreciation measures are a step in the right direction, but it is a timid step. The time for a capital gains tax is right now, this year, in this budget, and the government has missed the moment to strengthen our economy, just as it has missed the chance to tighten foreign investment rules around property. To ignore those opportunities fails the fortitude test. Mr Speaker, the tax cuts in this National Act and Maori Party budget will go mostly to the well-off, while raising GST hits those on low incomes disproportionately. This widens the gap between those who are haves and those who are have-nots. It punishes those who already struggle to make ends meet, and the punishment falls most heavily on Māori and Pacific peoples. So this budget will increase inequality and increase the social deficit and ultimately the fiscal deficit. Looking after our most vulnerable children should be the heart of any budget, because one day these kids will fill either our workforce or our prisons. The budget from the National, ACT and Māori parties increases the money